As the president looks to roll out his tax reform plan Wednesday, one grassroots organization is looking forward to the plan. One America's John Hines caught up with the director of FreedomWorks and has a story from D.C.
We're here on the roof of our bureau at 101 Constitution Avenue, and it's a cloudy day in Washington, and Congress hasn't quite gone into session. I wanted to check in with Jason Pye, who is the Director of Public Policy and Legislative Affairs with the conservative activist group FreedomWorks. Jason, you've been very much involved in the health care debate. You were not excited about the House health care plan developed by Speaker Ryan. Tell us what's going on with that plan. What have you heard? What's the latest?
Well, the latest seems to be that Congressman Tom MacArthur from New Jersey and Congressman Mark Meadows, who's the chair of the House Freedom Caucus, have been talking a lot during the two-week recess, trying to come to some sort of agreement where they can move forward and bring the bill to the floor for a vote. And that agreement seems to center around some Title I regulations, Title I of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and those the specifics are letting states opt out of the essential health benefits and community rating. There may be some certain things that states have to do to opt out of certain parts of community rating, such as participate in a high-risk pool, for example. But it does seem to be like a step in the right direction, but we just don't know yet what the projection for it is, because nobody's seen the legislative text outside Capitol Hill. At least outside of members. And so
is there legislative text? Do we know?
We know that there's legislative text. It's just nobody on the outside has seen it yet. So we're still waiting to see it before we can decide what our path forward is on the bill. But a lot of it's going to depend on what kind of flexibility the states get. If it's something that requires the Secretary of Health and Human Services to grant waivers or opt-outs, that would be beneficial for states. But if it's something that the HHS, the Secretary of HHS, can kind of just do if he wants to, that's a little bit more restrictive, and we wouldn't like that. So it really is depending on what kind of flexibility states are given. When
might we see a legislative, some kind of documentation on this?
Well, there's an outline of the amendment already available. I believe one news outlet had that last week. But in terms of the actual legislative text, we had heard Friday. Then we heard, well, maybe sometime Saturday or Sunday. Now we're hearing late today, tomorrow.
Mañana.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, I think it's anybody's guess. Their word is there's still some last-minute negotiations taking place. Some of the Tuesday group members, MacArthur is a co-chair of the Tuesday group. They may want some offsets or some trade-offs in order to get their support for the overall amendment itself.
But it sounds like we actually might have some kind of an agreement. It sounds like we might have something that will end up in a vote. Is that your sense?
I think so. I mean, I think we're going to get this done. I think we're going to get it done within the next couple weeks. But you know, I just don't have an exact firm date on when it's going to happen. But I do think it's going to get done.
Second thing is, of course, there is a continuing resolution, and people remember back to December, when they were trying to form a government with the new administration. They thought, well, let's push this off because it was going to expire the budget then, so they pushed it off to now, thinking that it would be better to include the Trump priorities in the new budget. But here we are. It expires on Friday. Yeah. What's happening with that?
Well, I mean, I think what we know is all sides are still talking. The House, the Senate, and the White House are all talking. The White House wants some last-minute priorities included, such as funding to secure the border up to and including a wall. But we don't know. We don't know whether they're going to get that or not. We also don't know whether the president would sign a continuing resolution that excluded funding for that. So a lot of it's in flux. It kind of remains to be seen. I think everybody thinks they're going to get something done, whether it's a temporary, maybe 1 week or 2 week CR or 3 week CR to get us through until we can hash out those final negotiations. But I do think there'll be something passed on or before Friday, and then we'll go into it and figure out the long term, get us through the rest of the fiscal year, which ends September 30th.
And it sounds like that's kind of priority number one in the Congress, because they really don't want to shut down, is what I'm
No one wants a shutdown. I don't think there's any. There may be few members of Congress who are pining for a shutdown. I don't think many are. At least most of the conservative offices I've talked to, no one really that seems to be on their that doesn't seem to be on their trajectory right now or on their radar. So I think we'll get it done. I mean, some of these guys may still vote against it because of certain other aspects of it, but I think most of them at the end of the day are going to come on board and support it.
And finally, the president has announced that he has a tax proposal. He's going to announce more details later this week. What have you heard about that?
Mostly it's going to be broad principles. That's what we've heard thus far. And the president did tweet out over the weekend that it will be a tax cut. So that's good news. But from our perspective, from FreedomWorks' perspective, we want to see something that broadens the tax base, eliminates a lot of loopholes, tax credits, and deductions. Maybe not all of them, but at least a lot of them. That way we have a broad tax base. That's just good tax policy. We also want to see tax rate cuts across the board, as well as consolidating of tax rates. We would like to see, you know, ideally the flat tax, it's what everybody wants, but at least 2-3 rates would be great. We want to see corporate income tax cut. We have had one of the highest corporate income taxes in the world, so we want to see a tax rate cut there. Cap gains rate cut.
That's a long list. I don't know if it's coming on Wednesday, though.
Well, I mean, the broad principles is what we're seeing. We're just simply saying, from FreedomWorks' perspective, that's what we hope to see in it. So, I mean, I think that the president will put something forward that we can all, you know, comment publicly or positively on publicly, and hopefully we'll have some sort of action on this, hopefully beginning next month.
Well, there you have it. It's a busy, busy week in the Congress. It hasn't quite all gotten started yet. The Senate will be in session later today, and of course the House tomorrow. And that's it for right now with Jason Pai, who is the Director of Public Policy and Legislative Affairs at FreedomWorks. And from the roof of 101 Constitution, back to you all in the studio.